Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today I thought we'd have a look at, well, these. What these are just little mini monitors which I've converted for use on microcomputers. Basically what I'm doing at the moment, I've got this old Grey Spectrum Plus 2 set up, and I have a shed ton of old software cassettes, as you can see, and basically I'm just going through them, seeing what works and what doesn't work. I've got a nice little selection of tapes there which I've tested and are all working fine. And I didn't really want to take up my main monitor on my desk up there while doing this. I could just set this aside anywhere in my workshop and leave it going. But what I thought was I didn't want to take up a full-size monitor for this, when all I really need is something just to see what's going on that the computer's actually loading. And I've had a couple of these knocking about for some time, and what they came with, I picked this up off a car boot sale a while ago, and it's one of these DVD players that's meant for your car. It comes with a DVD player and two screens like that. Now, I bought this cheap from a car boot sale as faulty. I think I either paid a £5 or a £10 for it, and the laser's gone. Basically, it won't read discs. I have no use for it for its intended purpose. And the whole reason I actually bought this more wasn't the DVD player. It was these nice little screens, and they are really nice little screens actually. As you can see, it's a widescreen display. But if I pick it up and try and keep it in shot, they do have a little switch on them, and they will actually switch into a 4.3 display. So you've got widescreen or 4.3. I'm just using it widescreen because, like I said, I'm not bothered about what the image looks like. I just want to see what's happening on screen. And they have stereo. You can hear. They do have stereo sound built in. There's no money running this mono. Now, the thing is that these were only ever designed and intended to be run with, well, with the DVD player like that they came from. And it's actually been quite a bit of work to get them to work on their own without that DVD player. Now, I've got two of them. I'm not going to crack that open because it's a bit of a pain to get everything in there and the AV mods, but we're going to have a look inside this one here, and I'll show you what I've basically had to do to get that to work. So without further ado, let's get the camera down on the bench so you can see what I'm doing. You will hear the old specky loading in the background. Like I say, I am just testing software at the moment, seeing what I've got that works, but I thought we'll crack into this and I'll show you exactly what I did with one of these to basically get it working as a standalone little monitor. Now we'll get rid of this this Velcro strap, which I'm sure will come in useful for something. So let's get that out of there, and let's get this off as well because we don't need it. One nice thing about these is that they've got them little screw keyways, so you can fix them to a wall or something like that. Oh well, that's one to Monty Mole seems to have loaded there. So we do have another software tape which definitely loads. I will say I rather like the Grey Spectrum Plus 2 as a tape loading Sinclair Spectrum. I think it's my favourite Spectrum actually for loading cassette software on. It seems to load just about anything from the 16K up to late 128K software without too many issues. You can't say that for some of the other Spectrum Plus 2s. The black ones can be a little bit picky on what software they load. Anyway, let's get in here. Oh, there's another screw there. Let's get in here and I will show you what I have had to do to get this get one of these screens actually working as a standalone monitor. And it's not a horrendous amount of work, but basically what I have had to do, let's get inside here. There we go. And there we are, we're in. This is what what you've got inside. And basically what you've got is you've got an LCD driver board at the top there, and this bottom board, for the most part, is really just your amplifier board. There's a little bit here which is concerned with the video circuitry on the LCD driver board. That's not connected up very well there. I'll just push that back in while I'm in here. Basically this thing expects the signal from its DVD player before it'll even turn on, and the voltages that this thing runs on are derived in the DVD player, not in here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to supply 8 volts to the board. Everything in here runs on 8 volts. I've found actually that most of these LCD, at least these composite ones I've been playing with, LCD driver boards actually run on 8 volts, not 5 volts. So that was the first problem, was to get 8 volts into this thing, and I accomplished that with one of those there, and that is a 7808. Now I'm sure we're all familiar with the 7805 voltage regulator, and that's a 7808 voltage regulator. Only difference being that it regulates to 8 volts, not 5 volts. So what I did was I've basically put 12 volts into the unit through that little regulator, and I have actually had to fit a little heat sink. I've stuck it in this space here. I've got a little heat sink in the other monitor there with the 7808 fixed onto it. Then up here I've got a little 12 volt power input rail. Basically just a power jack on the back of the monitor. Goes through the 7808, and then I found where the power was on this multi-connector there, and I just tapped the to the ground and to the plus 8 volts line, so that makes the unit power up. That powers the amplifier section of the unit up, no problem, and it powers up the monitor here. But what I then had to do was feed the video from obviously from my external source, and what I did was I mounted 3 RCA connectors there because I had a little bit of spare space. It's not the neatest of jobs. I did have to hack a bit of plastic away, and I used like a multi-way connector that's got all 3 connectors on it. It's something I salvaged off an old piece of equipment, and I just drilled the holes through there to mount them. Alright, then if you look at this, I don't know, this isn't coming out very well. It's a little bit dark in here for some reason today. But basically on this ribbon here, the first 2 connections, which is the red and the first grey there, are your composite inputs. So I desoldered them from the board and basically ran them straight off to the RCA yellow composite input that I put on the front of the screen there. And that basically was it. So we've got a little voltage regulator we've added on this side here. We then took the left and right audio and a ground, brought the ground over and basically grounded that out to the grounded that out to the PCB there, and then we picked up the left and right audio straight from where they come in on that little multi-pin DIN, and ran them over to the RCAs over there. And that's basically it, and that got us a nice little working 7-inch widescreen stroke 4:3 switchable monitor. Like I said, it's cost me, I think the 7808 voltage regulator was what, I think they were 49p. I didn't have any in stock. I actually had to go to Maplin's, which is against my better judge. I'm not a big fan of Maplin's. I tend to think they are a little bit of a rip-off place. But I managed to get some 7808 voltage regs from there for I think it was 49p each or something like that. So yeah, and actually found out I've got another another 7808 voltage reg actually in that DVD player in the base unit, which obviously is now scrap. So if I do need another one for the other monitor, which I might do. I think I'm probably going to do the same with the other monitor because it's a nice use for them. Like I said, they're handy to just have lying around in the workshop, and it does, like I said, work rather nicely. Let's just reset that, and you can see. Let's reset the specky, and as you can see, like I said, there's quite a decent image off that. It does work quite nicely. There's a tiny little bit of artifacting in the background, a little bit of colour creep, but it's not bad at all. And that takes me on to my next monitor. Now this one, I was walking down the high street a little while ago. I've had this one sat in a box, and I'm a lover of skips, builders rubbish skips. I absolutely love them. And like I said, I was walking down the high street, and I think they was refurbishing one of the flats above the shops, and there was a skip on the side, and I spotted this in it. And what it is, this is an old door intercom. In fact, I got the whole kit and caboodle. There's the camera that would have originally been on the door, and that was the monitor from inside the premises. Now, I got this, and the only thing it didn't come with was the 12-volt power adapter to power it all up. And basically what I did was I brought it home and I connected it up to a power supply. It wasn't too hard to work out which wires had been cut, so I connected it all up, and it actually worked fine. The only problem with it was that button there is absolutely shot. You have to really press on it incredibly hard to get it to actually register you've pressed it. So that's obviously why this thing was chucked away. And I wasn't really interested in that. That's in a horrible manky state. I think I will probably just whip the camera unit out of it and throw that in the bin after I've finished making this video. But yeah, what I was more interested in it for was the nice little screen that it came with. And I've basically done the same to this as you've just seen. This isn't quite finished. This is still a bit of a work in progress. I really like this because it's got a flip out stand at the back, so it just stands up wherever you want it. And like I said, I've got this working, but I'm not 100% happy with it yet. We'll put some power up and I'll show you basically what it does. Now this is only mono at present, so we'll connect it up, and as you can see, it does actually produce a quite a nice image. There's a bit of noise you can hear. It unfortunately produces as well, and unfortunately I can't get colour out of it. I can only get it to display in black and white at the moment. Now that isn't a major issue. It's still useful. There's still quite a lot of computers we've got out there that never had colour. I mean, I've got my Acorn Atom, ZX81, Z80s, things like that. They were only black and white computers. My Video Genie, which is a TRS-80 clone, original TRS-80 Mark 1 clone, that's only a black and white. So it's got plenty of uses as it is. It's just a bit annoying because when I first connected this up with its original camera, it did actually display in colour. It's just, for some reason, something's happened to it with me messing about with it, and I have had to do a hell of a lot of messing about with this thing even to get just a basic image out of it. If I move the chroma on the side of it, as you can see, the screen just doesn't change at all. If I change the brightness, you can see the brightness actually works quite nicely. But no matter what I try at the moment, I just can't get any colour out of it. But anyway, I'll crack this open and I'll show you the fun I've had with this one to actually get it to work like as a display monitor. And like I said, the biggest problem with this one was it was actually designed as a video intercom, which meant that that screen only came on when someone pressed the doorbell or you pressed that button there. So the first thing I had to do was actually I had to figure out a way of disabling that functionality, and I will show you what I've had to do to this thing. I have literally had to hack this thing apart inside to actually get it to work as a standalone computer or stroke video monitor. But I really don't know why it's decided it doesn't want to display colour anymore. I have checked all connections between the colour part, the colour wheel on the side, and there we go, we're in. The colour wheel on the side, and which is that there, and the main board, and I can't find a broken connection which would mean it was losing its colour signal or anything like that. But this is very, very similar to what I've just shown you. Basically what we've got is we've got a video driver board here which drives the composite video. Again, it needs oh, I will move that out of there. Again, it needs 8 volts. Fortunately, this already had a 7808 voltage regulator, which is underneath that heatsink there, and that was the easy part, to actually get this thing so I could switch it on and stay on, because as it was, you would press the power button and it would switch on for a predetermined amount of time. I think it was like a minute, and it would then power itself back down again. And basically what you had is all this here is the control circuitry for the intercom, and in that socket there, I've actually removed it. It is actually that component there. That is actually a little microprocessor in its own right. It's got about 2K of ROM. I think it's got 128 bytes of RAM and a little 8-bit processor, all in that little chip there. And that was what basically drives the rest of this. So what I did was, there was a power transistor there, and that microprocessor switched the power transistor, which switched the 7808 voltage regulator on for a predetermined amount of time to power up the screen. So all I did was I removed the power transistor and put a little wire link in there just to turn the 7808 voltage regulator permanently on, and that powered up the screen. And that was easy enough. That got the screen up and running. The problem I had was for audio. Now, this doesn't really have an amplifier chip per se as I was expecting it to have. What it has is this MC34018P, which basically I thought would just be an amplifier chip. It's not. It's actually a special intercom chip. And it has lots of things for balancing the audio and gain controls and all sorts of things that we don't need on it. And I did try actually using that chip and bypassing some of its systems, just setting it and using it as an amplifier. And I did get it to work, but to be honest, the audio, it wasn't very good. It was very tinny. I probably had the biasing set wrong somewhere. I did manage to find a pin out for it, but it didn't make a lot of head and a tail. So in the end, I gave up with that. And what I did is I don't know if you can see it down there, is I built my own little amplifier board here. And all we've got is a LM386 single amplifier chip. So it's only mono, this. It only does have the one speaker installed, and that's the original speaker that came with the intercom. It produces probably only about 500 milliwatts, but for this purpose it's absolutely fine. I am still having some issues picking up a bit of interference, I think probably off the inverter or something like this on here. And it is, like I said, well actually I don't think this has an inverter, I think it's LED, this screen, but there's something around here, I don't know, there's a coil there. There's something around here is generating some interference, and it's being picked up by the amplifier. That's why you're getting a little bit of noise on the signal, on the audio signal. It's not horrendous, and it's something I'm going to work on in the future, seeing if I can perhaps get it down a little bit. But yeah, that's what I've done to this one. So I just thought I'd show you these to show you can actually get these little screens for either very cheap or for free in this case, and you can make use of them with our old vintage micros. Like I said, they come in incredibly handy when you want to have, say you've got a like this Specky that I've been working on. This is a Specky which came in a job This one here, it's a Specky that came in a job lot of broken systems that I bought a while back now, and it had multiple faults on it, as these things often do. It's been through the hands of a dealer, and obviously it didn't work, but the cassette deck did, so they'd swap the cassette deck out with one that didn't work, and the keyboard was iffy on it, so they'd swap the keyboard out with one that didn't work. So basically everything didn't work on it, and it took a little bit of time to get it working, but it's actually now a very, very good little test spectrum. Like I said, I'm currently using it for testing audio tapes. But in that use, say, especially considering I might want to be working on something else using my main monitor, I can just connect it up to something like this, sit it on a side table, and leave it going, loading software, and I can still see what the thing is doing. So I'm going to leave this video here for now. So I hope you enjoyed that, and just that you can actually make a use out of some of these old monitors. It's not just as simple as just taking them and plugging them into an old computer. You could supposedly do that with possibly some of them, but it's a bit of fun to try and get them to work with something that they weren't designed for, and that's mainly why I do this. I just enjoy experimenting with this old literally junk which was going to end up in the landfill. So I hope you enjoyed that. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.